also a member of the core group. We have a jam-packed schedule tonight and a number of presenters with vast experience in dealing with our homelessness crisis and who continue to assist our homeless neighbors during this pandemic. I'd like to start this meeting with a Bible reflection. This Bible reflection is taken from Saddleback at Home, which is Pastor Rick Warren's way of connecting with members and others each day during this pandemic. The Bible passage from 2 Corinthians 4, verses 7 through 10. We carry God's treasure in our jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. We often don't know what to do, but we don't despair and give up. We are hounded and hunted, but we are not abandoned. And we get knocked down, but we're not knocked out. Though we face death every day as we serve Jesus in our mortal bodies, we want our bodies to reveal the life of Jesus within us so it can be seen by others. If there's a single verse that should speak to all of us right now, it would be this verse. God is interested in accomplishing two things, or at least two things, during this crisis. First, God is trying to use your weakness to show the world his glory. The first part of this verse reminds us we are only human. Our bodies are mortal and don't always work right. It can only take a certain amount of stress before they break. Yet God chooses our weak bodies to show off his power. God often puts his greatest gifts in the weakest individuals so that the world knows this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. Second, God wants you to learn resilience. It is the ability to bounce back. Everyone falls, but not everyone gets back up. As God is giving us the power to move through the COVID-19 crisis, he's also giving us many opportunities to look outside of ourselves, outside our own particular situation, see and meet the needs of others. The help we can give to our homeless neighbors is needed now more than ever. We cannot let them be forgotten, nor relegated to the end of a long list of issues our community will be addressing in the days to come. Next, Anthony. And now I'd like us all to have a moment of silence to remember those who are sick from COVID-19, those who have died from the disease, and those who are currently experiencing homelessness in our communities who need our help to protect them from COVID and to improve their condition in the days to come. And now I'd like to introduce Anthony Manousis, the chairperson of GPAHG's Homeless Housing Committee and co-founder of Making Housing and Community Happen, to explain a few ground rules to help our meeting run smoothly.
Okay, so one of the ground rules that was mentioned by Sonia is to keep your on mute until you have you need to speak, because we can hear all of the sounds that are made in the background. It can be really distracting. The other thing to note is at the bottom of your screen there is a ribbon with various things that it says, including the word chat. And if you're not familiar with chat, you can press on it, and then you can write a message or a question. And we'll be taking all questions via chat, so please take advantage of this feature. And let's see, I think that's pretty much the most important thing. Does anybody have? Yep, what?
The timekeeper?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Fern Hayes is going to be our timekeeper. And 1 minute before the speaker's time is up, each speaker will get around 10 or 12 minutes. Fern, they'll raise this little sign to remind you that it's time to wrap things up. And then at the time when your time is up, she's going to hold up another sign. Okay, thank you.
Anthony, sorry. The only problem is that I can't necessarily see her. Sorry, what was the name? Because I don't have that person on my screen. So if she holds up a sign, I won't be able to. Oh, unless you put it on the chat.
Teresa, but I don't see Teresa somewhere.
Yeah.
Is it Teresa? Yeah. Okay, let me make sure I have her.
I don't
It's
know.
Fern Hayes. Well, try this out. You're right, there is a little issue because everybody's screen is a little different. And we have 47 people, so I think we have 4 different screens, so maybe this won't work. So please try to monitor yourself, maybe have your cell phone set for 12 minutes and kind of keep an eye on the time.
What would work is if actually she wrote it in the chat and just said 1 minute,
Okay.
and then I'll keep my eye on the chat thing.
Okay, Fern, you heard her. Can you do that?
Do you know how to mute? TT texted you to mute it.
What?
Vern, are you muted? Because we can't hear you.
Yes, I was unmuted. I was muted. Okay, I think I know how to do the chat, but I don't know how to direct it to the person, but I'll find that out.
You can just say it to everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I
That's all
got it.
for me.
Okay, first, I have the pleasure to introduce Sean Morrissey, who will share his housing story with us. Sean is the Director of Advocacy and Community Engagement for Union Station Homeless Services. Sean is formerly homeless himself and knows the ins and outs of homeless service provision. Sean works to share directly and engage the public. Sean?
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me, everybody. I think I have 3 minutes. I was told this is this part of my story took about 16 million minutes to live through. I asked Alexa, and that's it, pretty much how much it was. Anyway, I'm just going to try to share briefly, kind of, I guess, just a thumbnail of what that looked like for me. And I was listening, Sonia, when you were during your reading, where the one line that stuck out to me was that God uses our weak bodies to show off his power. And I guess if there was could be a title to this 3-minute story, that would be it. I grew up in a kind of a tumultuous family with I'm going to go way back because that's really where my homelessness starts, is kind of during the trauma experienced as a kid. I grew up in a household where there was a lot of physical abuse and then later daily sexual abuse at the hands of my father that went on for many, many years. And as a result of that, I started using substances as an effort to kind of quell that psychic pain and discomfort I was feeling, and that feeling that I was like completely alone in the world and nobody else was experiencing what I was experiencing. And I started at a very early age. I started using prescription opiates at 12 years old. And it was on the cusp of my 40th birthday that I stopped using them. And not to discount my role in any of the intervening years and the choices that I made, but I identified early on that this was part of my story. And, you know, there was a lot of shame for me around that story. And I've learned since then to be able to speak that and tell exactly what that was and what happened to me, and not be ashamed of that, and have the weak body used to highlight the power of whatever is out there, and community and nurture and all of those things that I was met with when I finally wound up at Union Station in 2002 as a client. And so, I mean, a combination of really bad parenting and a lot of broken and bad systems helped, I think, keep me out there. In the 2 years before I wound up at Union Station, I had tried a handful of times to get into county-funded treatment. And back then, you had to kind of prove yourself and prove that you were able and willing and wanting and desirous of sobriety in order to get anything that even looked like housing at that time. I tried several times. If you fell off, you had to call every day. It took about 3 months to get into treatment. You had to call every day. If you missed a call, you would lose your place in line. And I lost my place in line 5 different times. And because I didn't belong to a community or family that had means, there was no real accessible treatment available to me. And so I just kept going. And, you know, not ironically, maybe when I did wind up at Union Station in 2002, it was money that provided access, because back then there was a grant through Passageways for detox, and that was $500 a day that was paid for an individual to go to detox. And that was the first time treatment was actually accessible to me. Yeah, there's a whole lot to this story, but I guess what I want to highlight are the barriers of trauma, and the way that trauma changes the brain and the way that we walk through the world, and the systemic barriers that even when someone wants and is trying desperately to get help, help is not necessarily accessible. That was true in 2002 when I got here, and it's true in 2020 today. Those systems have not changed that much. Money buys access still. There's a lot of barriers and impediments that still exist within those systems. As a result of my being able to finally get well and to come into community with people who really cared about me and really wanted nothing for me other than for me to be okay, I was finally able to get inside. And I think that's my housing story. 3 minutes, maybe? I don't know.
Thank you, Sean. I'm sorry to cut you. So, I mean, you do have a very powerful story, but we all know what an integral part you play at Union Station. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just for procedure, I did send Sean an announcement that the 3 minutes was up, but if he's not looking at chat, it doesn't come through.
Yeah,
So
multitasking is
I'm not quite sure.
I see it now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll get through it. No, we're right on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
But just for procedure, if speakers could just look at their chat, I guess, if that's possible.
Thank you, Fern.
One idea too is that people could self-monitor. They can all set their cell phone and timer. So.
And just before we get to our educational program tonight, we're going to have the committee chairs for the committees of GPAHG and to give a very brief update on and also what their specific committee does. And we'll start with Anthony, who is the chair of the Homeless Housing Committee. Anthony, you're on mute.
All right. So I'm Anthony, the chair of the Homeless Housing Subcommittee. And this past Saturday night, I drove my wife, Jill, to the Huntington emergency room to have an abscess checked out. Jill is fine, but along the way, I was surprised to see how few people were walking around in old Pasadena and how many people were sleeping on the sidewalks, pushing carts, or obviously homeless. We don't know the exact count, but it's likely that over 250 people are currently sleeping outdoors in our city. Our subcommittee is concerned that FEMA trailers given to the city are empty while Pasadena residents are sleeping on our streets. This doesn't make sense to us. We're trying to find churches and other sites for these trailers so they can be used for temporary homeless housing. We're urging the city to get its fair share of project turnkey funding. Teresa will say more about this. So homeless people can be housed in motels. And we want the city to partner with an affordable housing developer to purchase a motel for permanent supportive housing. We're partnering with the Pasadena Tenants Union to advocate for strengthening Pasadena's eviction moratorium, since eviction is a significant cause of homelessness. We're also advocating for final approval of homeless senior housing at Heritage Square South. We began advocating for this project 3 years ago, and it's now coming up for a final vote. We are very close to a major victory, 69 units of homeless housing, but we haven't quite passed the finish line. That's why we're urging you to write to the City Council and join us on Monday, May 4th. Let's make sure our elderly homeless population is housed. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Next, we have Burt from the Church Liaisons Committee.
Okay. So our goal, can you hear me? Can I be heard? Okay, I assume I can be heard.
Yes.
Okay, our goal is to have 20 liaisons and 20 faith congregations in Pasadena by mid-August. A liaison is someone who represents their congregation at monthly meetings and organizes their congregation to participate in the work of GPAHG. Ideally, we'll be able to rely on liaisons to rapidly activate their faith community members for actions for which we need large numbers of people, usually at City Council meetings. We now have 18 people who have stepped up to volunteer as liaisons for their congregations. There were no new recruits this month. The coronavirus crisis has made it difficult to recruit more liaisons because it's difficult to visit churches and other congregations and other networking events. But I do have a couple of meetings coming up with pastors who want their churches to participate in our coalition. Also, we have been focusing on training the liaisons we've got. We are now running monthly trainings by Zoom. Also, I have been having one-on-one meetings with liaisons by phone or video. And our trainings include organizing theory, skills building, and updates on campaigns. If you want to have a GPAHG liaison from your faith community, please let me know and I'll talk to you about our process. Thanks.
Thank you, Burt. Next is our Safe Parking Committee. Tom?
Tom could not find the link.
All right.
So
Let's go to you. Go ahead. Sorry.
yes, I just sent it to him. Hopefully he'll get on soon. I'd suggest someone else go first. Go
Right.
next.
Okay. Then we'll have the Accessory Dwelling Unit ADU Committee. Anne Marie?
Sorry, I couldn't get off unmute. Hi, everyone. I'm going to speak about the ADU committee, and I just want to start off by saying I've been missing in action for a month, but I hope to rejoin the group now that homeschooling has calmed down a little bit. Our group has grown. Currently, the members are Pastor Len Tang. He has been taking leadership of the group. And he has scheduled a call with the planning department discerning their level of interest in ADU design competition. There's some new committee members. They include Sam Sarpon, Sylvester Williams, Jesse Charros, and Leslie Greer. I apologize if that was a mispronunciation. Last week, we submitted a letter to the City Council supporting an ADU to be built by Habitat in partnership with Union Station and the Pasadena Community Foundation. This will be built on a city site that will house a previously homeless couple or individual. Such partnerships fit like a glove with the overall goals of the committee. Our letter was read at the City Council, and Councilman John Kennedy later asked if ADUs could be subsidized or expedited, as it is a way to help house our homeless population at the time of the pandemic at a lower cost.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Connie with the Community Land Trust Committee.
Good evening, everyone. Community Land Trust, as the chairperson, is somewhat on hold because, as your reflection noted, is that there's very pressing needs right in front of us. And so I personally have been very busy utilizing my sewing machine that had not been used for quite a while, and making masks, and also now making surgical caps for Methodist Hospital. And so that's become sort of a full-time job, and I really feel called to respond to the immediate. Community Land Trust is a sort of a future-looking vision, and there is work we can be doing in terms of building relationships with those who are interested in the Community Land Trust issue. That I'm committed to reaching out to start that, but beyond that, we're not moving too fast at the moment. So that's where we stand at the moment.
Thank you, Connie. Jill, the Congregational Land Committee.
Does this include my ED report?
That's right after that, if you want to just segue.
Oh, okay. I kind of combined the two. So let me start off here. So there's a couple. First, I just want to say we have the most amazing people and
Oh, by the way, Tom is on board. I think Tom Petersmeyer just joined us.
So,
right, Tom?
So Tom, can you see us? Do you want to go next with your safe parking report?
I unmuted Tom if he's with us.
Okay. Yeah,
Well,
I don't see him.
Okay.
Maybe he'll get on in a minute. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm beyond impressed with the quality and amazing teams we have and the people God's brought to work with us. And so I've got a few things as far as accomplishments, some pretty exciting news in this last year, and a few challenges. And so I want to mention a fairly unknown program of MHCH called the North Carroll Empowerment Initiative, and then mention about one of our newer committees, which is, what's that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get closer. Okay, thanks. One of our newer committees, Congregational Land, and then some philosophical ideas regarding the importance of density and what's going on right now with COVID. So first, the North Fair Oaks. In December, we were given an $18,000 donation to help hire an organizer to move our goals forward. The goals for the North Fair Oaks Empowerment is affordable housing, safety and beauty, and an employment center. And so the team consists of pastors represented from Bethel Church, New Life Holiness, New Hope Church, Greater New Guide Missionary Baptist, and a group home on North Fair Oaks, which is the epicenter for COVID. One nursing home in that area has had over 20 staff and 43 patients with COVID and a number of deaths. So the total to date is 362 cases in Pasadena with 32 deaths. So you can see the majority of those are on North Fair Oaks. So last night in our meeting, it was really exciting to see everyone put their faith into action by deciding to request the public for 600 homemade masks. We want to try to get those by this Monday to be delivered to the 6 nursing homes in North Fair Oaks that have COVID cases. So 100 for each nursing home. So I hope that you'll step up to the plate. In chat, I'll provide the location where you can bring those masks and drop them off or send them. Second, I want to mention about the Congregational Land Committee, which I'm on. It's just an amazing committee. I feel honored to be part of it. So it's officially changed its name to Congregational Land Committee in order to reach a broader audience. We now have 26 churches that have been interested in having affordable housing on their land. And one is toward the end of that process that we take them through from kind of discernment, ideas, all the way to feasibility. It now has a concept of 48 units on their land, and that's been vetted and affirmed by the planning department, the housing department, and the city council rep. So it's getting ready now to be sent to a development partner, affordable housing developer. There's a big hitch though, and this is one of the concerns. In order to make this possible on land throughout the city of Pasadena, every single church needs a zone change. Not one has been able to have the proper zoning. So we are asking for an overlay zone, which will consist of churches that have at least 50% of the units to be affordable, that it would increase the density by 100%. In other words, if it's zoned for 16 units per acre, it would increase to 32. And then if it's zoned commercial or public, it would be also included, it would allow residential on top of that. So in order to do this technical work, it costs money, and that team really needs our funding. We submitted a grant last week for $20,000, and just yesterday we got a donation of $1,000. So it's really exciting. And so I'm going to send you the link if you're interested in giving. I'll put that in chat as well. And then lastly, I just want to mention my concern about density. What happens oftentimes, this kind of shock doctrine that Naomi Klein talks about, in the time of crisis, people take advantage of it. So some people are saying, oh, density, that's the problem. That's what's causing COVID. And at the outset, that may seem like, well, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. But if you go deeper, it's actually the opposite. When you see overcrowding, that's what causes this kind of problem we have today. But if everyone had their own vine and fig tree, as we call it, like our logo, if we had our own place, then you can social distance. And so I wrote a blog. I was so concerned about this, and it's called what something. Oh, gosh, I lost my article, but it's all about what's the relationship, the correlation between density and COVID, and then what would Jesus say about density? So I'm going to put the link to that. I think that you'll find it really fascinating. I had a lot of fun writing. I'd love your feedback. So I could go on, but thank you for the time and the chance to provide this update. I hope Tom is on and can give a few minutes. So Tom, did you ever get on? Are you on? I think he's pretty frustrated. So
we'll have him keep working at that. Thank you, Jill. And I didn't introduce you. It's Dr. Jill Shook. She's the executive director of Making Housing Community Happen, as well as co-founder. And thank you all committee chairs for your reports. And there's some great stuff happening with GPAHG. And now we'll move into our educational program. First, we have Carlos Amador from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and he's going to tell us what the County of LA is doing to meet immediate needs of our neighbors and longer-term strategies. Carlos is a community engagement supervisor at LAHSA. His background is in immigrant rights organizing. Carlos has deep experience running field programs for policy, legislative, and budget campaigns at the local, state, and federal level. In his role at LAHSA, Carlos oversees 4 service planning areas across the Los Angeles continuum of care. He is also involved in the planning and execution of the Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count, the yearly effort to count people experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles. Carlos holds a master's degree in social welfare from UCLA. So we welcome Carlos. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Give me can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna try to call in. Sometimes the phone works a little better, but if you hear me well, I'll just continue on with this. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be joining this conversation today. I hope everyone is healthy and safe at home. I'm also joining in via remotely from home. I live in the San Fernando Valley, and as I was introduced, I supervise part of the community engagement unit within LASA, overseeing including SPA 3, which is a great part of the San Gabriel Valley. So yes, so we're working around the clock to make sure that we're responding and addressing the issues impacting community members experiencing homelessness, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. One of the big, just to maybe give a little bit of the background with LASA, LASA is the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and we cover the LA continuum of care, which specifically focus on most of the county, with exceptions of Pasadena, Glendale, and Long Beach. Those three cities have their own continuum of care, which is like their own homeless services system, though we coordinate and collaborate with service providers that overlap or cover those areas as well. But through the LA continuum of care, we operate some of the biggest outreach team doing outreach to community members experiencing homelessness, coordinate the winter shelter programs, do a lot of the policy setting for the coordinated entry system, as well as the administering and distribution of grants to service providers and subcontractors as well, some of them who are faith-based organizations or organizations that have a faith-based purpose and mission. And so obviously being the lead organization on addressing the homelessness crisis in Los Angeles County, we are also the lead agency on responding and ensuring that we're protecting those experiencing homelessness from the coronavirus. And so as soon as the shelter in place order, social distancing orders started coming down, whether it was from the federal government, the state, the local level, we took on the initiative to educate, and also provide guidelines on the education and outreach happening across the county. Also ensuring that we are working with service providers who have interim housing projects, whether that's shelters, transitional housing, permanent housing as programs, to make sure that they knew the social distancing guidelines. This is specifically critical with shelters that are operating across the county and including in the San Gabriel Valley, making sure that there was the population of those shelters, to make sure that there was enough room in between to make sure that it was not a crowded space and people were not as susceptible to be contagious by the virus if it was to be in that shelter. So we've been working on that. One of the big efforts that we have been leading, and probably the one that you have heard the most on the news, is the Project Room Key, which kicked in about 3 weeks ago. Essentially, this is an effort to try to bring in as many of the high-risk, vulnerable individuals experiencing homelessness into hotels or motels that partner with us and with the county, who are, obviously at this time, mostly vacant or all vacant because of people not traveling. And so for the past 3 weeks or so, we've been working on expanding that number. The goal is to house 15,000 individuals and moving them out of the streets and into a shelter or shelter in place, a safe place where they can actually shelter in place, shelter at home. And so as of today, we have 18 hotels and motel sites across the county. And LASA is leading the operations. We're working closely together with the county government. We're also working closely together with the county fires department to lead the inspections and the approval of the space before it becomes operational. And obviously with service providers in the region who are the ones providing the services and running the programmatic aspects of the hotels and motels or the room key. We are providing meals, three meals a day to individuals housed in these hotels and motels. And obviously the goal is essentially a 90-day period. But our hope and our goal is to make sure that those individuals that are being moved into this type of housing are able to transition into some sort of interim housing and further on permanent supportive housing as well. And so, as I mentioned, as of today, there's 18 hotels and motels operating across the county. That means 1,440 rooms that are accommodating these individuals, which I repeat, are highly vulnerable individuals, meaning they're elder folks, they're individuals who have either chronic health issues or a vulnerable immune system, but that are not, infected or sick with the virus, right? These are asymptomatic, non-exposed individuals. There's another tier system where people who are exposed to or seem to be in contact with the virus, there's a different system where they're being isolated. Though for the homeless population, it's a very small number compared to the larger LA County population who has been tested positive for COVID-19. So I wanted to elevate the Project Room Key as a major point. But obviously, we continue to work on the safe parking programs across the continuum of care. We are also updating our a food program resource list. We're making sure that we're pulling from different parts of the county, so folks that are in need know where to go for some food programs in their area, as well as making sure that we're, again, providing the guidelines necessary for service providers to keep their clients safe. A quick note before I wrap up, and maybe there's any questions. One of the things that the community engagement unit is leading, and my counterpart Stephen Yu, who couldn't join in today, he's actually one of the lead coordinators for a number of hotels in the region. He also has been leading, as a former pastor, he's been leading the faith-based initiative within LASA, which essentially is focused on leveraging the services and the resources that faith-based organizations are providing already to the community members experiencing homelessness, and making sure that we know how to bring them into the coordinated entry system that operates across the county, but also making sure that we're also providing the tools necessary to build their capacity building, to ensure that they're able to scale up the services and provide more opportunities for those that they're serving. So wanted to end with that, and I also can elevate some points of where folks, individuals can jump in and support in the current situation. One last thing before I jump into any questions is we do have out of the faith-based initiative, we're going to have a convening electronically on May 6th for individuals, community members, the faith-based organizations in Spot 3 and in other spots in the San Gabriel Valley. I can provide more details on that, but it's going to be next week on May 6th. If you want to join and learn more about what can you do in more detail about the current crisis, and also long-term about providing support and services for people experiencing homelessness.
Thank you so much, Carlos. If you could, in the chat, give your email address if there's any follow-up questions, because our questions are going to be at the end of after the different presentations. But if they have some specific questions, that would be really helpful. Thank you, Carlos.
I was going to raise my email. I'll raise it right here in the chat for sure. If anyone wants to get information about the convening happening next week.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a presentation from Jenny O'Reilly-Jones on what the City of Pasadena is doing for immediate needs of our homeless neighbors, as well as longer-term strategies. Jenny is the City of Pasadena's Homeless Programs Coordinator and oversees the Pasadena Continuum of Care, also known as the Pasadena Partnership to End Homelessness. Prior to working for the city, Jenny worked for many years as direct homeless service provider at nonprofit agencies in Pasadena and Glendale. So we welcome Jenny.
Jenny mentioned on the chat that she's having some connectivity issues, that she's calling in. So it may take a moment.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna turn on my video. Oh, there I am at the beach. Okay, hi everybody. Yes, I don't have the greatest internet reception in the room where I set up my home office. So anyway, thank you, Carlos, for sharing Lasa's activity. Thank you, Sean, for sharing your personal story. And thank you for Anthony for inviting me today to give you an update. We've been really busy in Pasadena. We've had, many great partners in all of our activities. I'm going to reference my notes because I don't want to miss anything. So I'll start from the smaller interventions and then lead up to our largest one. To date, we have placed 10 hand washing stations at various sites that we've identified as kind of hot spots for people experiencing homelessness throughout the city, and they're being really well utilized. So that's been a great way we've been able to support our homeless neighbors in, in their hygiene. We also have implemented a mobile shower program, and starting this Friday, we'll be up to three days a week. The showers are being offered at the Hill Library right by PCC, Sunday mornings, Wednesday mornings, and then it will be Friday afternoons starting this week. So that's been really great. We've been able to offer about 40 showers per day, and we also are providing lunch at that site. So that's been really great for the community as well. We know that, once all the businesses closed, many places where people experiencing homelessness regularly take showers, like PCC or like private gyms, they all closed. And so it became very difficult, even more difficult to find a place to take a shower. So we were really grateful to be able to very quickly partner with an agency called the Shower of Hope. And they bring in a mobile shower and offer that great service to our neighbors on those days. So that's been really successful. We also have distributed what we're calling they're not exactly hygiene kits, well they are, they're more like hand washing kits is what we're calling them, to people who continue to experience unsheltered homelessness. So we've put together kits that contain hand sanitizer, masks, tissues, water, a granola bar, and an info card with information about how to protect yourself during this pandemic, where to call if you're experiencing symptoms, and also the info cards do list all of the hand washing sites and the shower location too. So we have the Pasadena Police Department's Hope team distributing those kits, and we also have outreach workers from Union Station and Housing Works as well, distributing those kits to people on the street. And they've been successful. I've been at the shower site, and people have actually showed me the paper that they received from a police officer and outreach worker. So it's really helping to get the word out there about the resources that are available. We have also distributed at this point now over 1,000 masks to people experiencing homelessness and also to our homeless service providers. And with more masks to come, we're really grateful for the support of our faith community committee. We've had a number of people donate masks, homemade cloth masks or masks that they purchased, and that has been really helpful. We were able to get masks out, immediately to the community once masks became a requirement for essential businesses. So starting this week, we'll be distributing masks at the shower site as well. And that has been really helpful too. So thank you to everyone who's supported in the masks. We've also been able to support Union Station with some other kind of critical supplies and cleaning at a couple of their high-risk sites. So we've been glad to be able to support there. Union Station has been really the greatest partner in all of our kind of COVID efforts. As somebody mentioned, they were really the first to move people I think somebody mentioned this, it's all kind of a blur. I go through so many calls now, but they were really the first to move people into motels as a protective housing measure for people experiencing homelessness. So we're so grateful for them, and we've been able to partner with them on our third project, which is our Project Room Key site. So Project Room Key is actually a statewide initiative, and LAHSA is overseeing it for the Los Angeles Continuum of Care, which does include LA City and 84 other cities. But Pasadena is its own continuum of care, so we did receive our own funding for our own Project Room Key initiative. So we have to date placed 36 individuals in our Project Room Key site. Some of them have been individuals who have moved out of the shelter to help to decompress that site, and then most of them have been people who've come off the street. So I know sometimes I hear that maybe we should be using the rooms for people coming off the site, but I just want to recognize that when we do bring someone in from the shelter, it helps to protect that individual, and it also helps to protect the individuals who remain at the shelter. So it's sort of, we're able to help more people at once by helping to decompress the shelter site. So that has been great, and we continue to accept referrals from our partner agencies and continue to fill rooms. We expect to fill 40 to 45 rooms probably with our Project Room Key sites, our Project Room Key intervention. Our public health department, they operate a program for seniors and also for youth experiencing homelessness. And they were able to, through that existing program, they also have been able to place a number of their participants into motels as protective housing. So these folks don't quite meet the criteria for Project Room Key, so they're not reported as part of the total served. But they have placed, I believe, 42 individuals to date into motels as well. So we've been really successful at getting, several dozen people off the street and into a safe setting, where folks can just be inside and self-isolate and protect themselves from the virus. So we've been really proud of our efforts. It certainly has been a lot of work, but it's been really rewarding. I know my personal background is in direct homeless services, and in recent years I've been in this more administrative role, and it's been sort of taken me back to my roots to kind of be operating a kind of pop-up non-congregate shelter, as they call it, and dealing more directly with people experiencing homelessness. It's been very rewarding. And then we are also working with Abode and Union Station. Abode is the owner and operator of Centennial Place, which is our primary permanent supportive housing site. We are, as a kind of safety net, we're developing a very small quarantine space in the basement. The county, of course, does have 2,000 quarantine and isolation beds available for people who become exposed to the virus or become symptomatic or are diagnosed as COVID positive and don't have a space where they can safely isolate or quarantine. And those beds currently are not fully utilized, so that's good. But because we do have a site with 142 individuals who share bathrooms and kitchens, as a precautionary measure, we're developing our own kind of small quarantine site in that building in the basement, just in case, we do get individuals there who become ill, and if the county beds fill up. So it still is looking like we're not going to need to use that space, but we want to be as careful as possible and as ready as possible. And again, we're really kind of grateful for the partnership with Union Station and with Abode, the operator of that building. So we've, had a lot of great work, and we've been able to keep our homeless population, safe thus far. I'm not aware of any positive cases in our homeless population so far. So we're just going to continue to pray that everyone stays well. But it's been a very busy, I guess, going on 2 months now, and we'll be continuing all of these interventions as long as we have this declaration of emergency, and as long as the need is there to support these folks in these ways. So I'm not sure, I don't know actually how much time I was supposed to take up, but I think that was probably about 3 to 5 minutes. And if anyone has any, questions, they can contact me. But thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Jenny. We appreciate your report and the work you're doing for our homeless population. Next, we're going to hear from Ann Miskey on what Pasadena's Union Station Homeless Services is doing for our homeless neighbors currently, as well as longer-term strategies. Ann Miskey is the CEO of Union Station Homeless Services, the main homeless service provider in the San Gabriel Valley. She comes with a decade of leadership experience in homeless services and has also served as the CEO of the Downtown Women's Center in Los Angeles' Skid Row. And so we welcome Ann Miskey.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here with this amazing group of people who are doing really incredible work. Now, because you probably really don't need to see my face, I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm going to see if this works. I'm not really technologically, let me see, is this working? No, I don't know if it's going to work. I thought it might.
It's working.
Oh, can you?
It did for a second.
It did for a second. Did you see? Oh, host disabled attendee screen sharing. Is there a way that
I think I just tried again.
Okay, let me try this one. No, it just keeps saying that it's disabled.
It did work for a quick second there.
What's that? Okay, there it goes. But for some reason, it's not doing it. And I don't know. Well, I guess I'm out of luck. And I thought I had it all set to go here. But it's not working. So I'm going to wing it because I had some amazing pictures and all sorts of stuff. So let me start. And again, thank you all for being here today. So as I think all of you probably know, Union Station, we focus on ending homelessness for people. And unlike sort of in past years when we focused on just emergency solutions or the old 3 hots and a cot, over the last number of years, we really have focused on permanent housing for people. And I know you guys all get that and the importance of it. But suddenly we've been moved back into a situation, a crisis situation, where short-term emergency is the focus of the day. So when this thing first started, we were really fortunate in that we had just about 3 weeks prior signed a contract with USC School of Medicine, and we were working with experts in street medicine and infectious diseases. And they basically told us that everything you're hearing from the CDC and public health isn't good enough, that we need to be actually stricter in our policies and our procedures around safety than we're being told publicly. So we went to sort of the extreme, if you will, around safety in terms of protective clothing and how we worked with clients. We never stopped serving our clients, but we really took safety seriously. And I got to say that the city of Pasadena, the housing department, Jenny, have been amazing partners with us as we did. And as she mentioned, as of yet, we have not had a single staff person or client that we're aware of test positive for COVID. So I think being safe has been really the right decision. So very quickly, however, after this started, we started talking about the need to decompress, was the word, our shelter. So before the county or LAHSA jumped into this, we started moving folks out of our shelter and putting them into hotels at our own expense, really looking at who were the most vulnerable folks in our shelter, because we knew that we just had too many people and the chance of something happening was too great. So about 2 weeks after we had started to do this, we started to have both the city of Pasadena, actually the city of Pasadena earlier, they opened their hotel, they're working with us, we were able to move some of our clients to the hotel, and then LAHSA started the Project Room Key. So right now,
I don't want to interrupt you, but if you want to try screen save, try it now. I think it'll work for you. I made you the host.
I'm just not, I think the thing is actually on my end, I'm not seeing my screen. So it's okay.
Okay.
Could I just interrupt for a second? There are a couple people that are not on mute. They need to be on mute, please. Because, there's some distracting noises in the background. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we jumped into Project Room Key, and right now we're working at 2 hotels in the San Gabriel Valley. But the other thing that we have recognized during this time of crisis is that food security has become a huge issue for people. So as our shelter, our adult center here in Pasadena was decompressing, we were compressing, I guess is the word, or going the opposite way with our food distribution. So at our adult center, we now have a major food distribution center. We are providing 8,000 meals a week to folks. That includes people who have been newly housed but are vulnerable, who can't leave their homes, families where we have single parents who have children that they can't get out, people who have lost their jobs and are in serious financial difficulty. Of course, the folks at our supportive housing, Jenny again spoke about Centennial Place, which has been a great partnership with the city and the housing department, as well as people who are on the streets. And so we have started working with some partners, some amazing partners, to help us distribute this food, and volunteers. And somebody asked me earlier, volunteers. We desperately need volunteers at our food distribution center, and we have extreme safety measures in place for people. So very safe, but if you want to do some volunteering, we desperately need help there. So that's our food distribution. But I'm going to get back now in a moment to Project Room Key. So this has been an absolutely amazing initiative. When we opened the first hotel, none of us knew what the heck we were doing. Jenny talked about sort of jumping back into sort of direct services, and I can say the same. I spent 5 days at the hotel, and I have learned things that I never thought I would ever learn to have to do, or that I haven't done in a long time. And I was running around, and I was, making beds in the hotel and transporting hot boxes and doing all sorts of things. The thing that is so amazing about Project Room Key is that it is a partnership, because I tell you, service providers, we could not have done it alone. It is a tremendous partnership between the Los Angeles Housing Service Authority, or the city department here in Pasadena, the housing department, the fire department. I have learned more. I told one of our contacts at the fire department that I was going to keep him permanently, because they have been so incredibly helpful in helping us develop an emergency response. So we're working with them. We have disaster service workers, we have nurses on site, we have security. So we have this group of people that very quickly have worked together as a team to house our most vulnerable folks. The first round of people that went into the hotels were people from the shelters as they were decompressing. In our case, we'd already done that. So to me, it was really exciting that in San Gabriel Valley, in the hotel we looked after, we were actually bringing people directly from the streets. So people who had been on the streets for years and years, who were vulnerable. And we hear about service resistance. I can tell you, when these folks were given the option of coming indoors, they all said yes. And to see the relief, the joy, all of those things on their faces as we're checking them in was incredibly powerful and heartwarming. So now we're doing our second hotel. We started today, 115 rooms. And again, I was there running around doing errands. My staff know what to do much better than I do. So I was the runner if they needed anything. But I had a chance to chat with a number of the folks that were coming off the streets and getting them into hotels, and again, the relief on their faces. At Project Room Key, we provide meals. Again, we have nursing staff on site, and our caseworkers are there. So we continue to provide services to these people. Now, one of the things that I had heard from a couple of other of these hotels, and we were talking to some of the police and fire departments, and they were like, well, why don't you have stricter rules? Why are you letting these people leave the hotel? You should make sure that they can only come down for 5 minutes. And we're going, they have the same rights as any one of us in our hotel, in our homes. If they want to go shopping, they have the right to go shopping. We're educating, but we're treating them like we would treat any person. The other thing, and this is very important, is we are not looking at this as just an emergency response. We are looking at this as a window of opportunity to get people permanently housed, because we are not going to end this in 3 months or however and say, okay, folks in hotels, go back to the street, nice seeing you. We are darn well going to make sure that we get these folks permanently housed, and that's where what you're doing is so important. So as we're working with these folks in hotels, we continue to focus on trauma care, trauma-informed care. I think Sean's story is so profound. The effects of trauma are great, and these folks have experienced trauma. We are doing harm reduction. So we don't care if they're on drugs or drinking or all of those things. We are meeting them where they are, and we are welcoming them inside for their safety in the short term, but really for their health, resilience, and stability in the long term. So our focus is on, yes, the emergency. What we can't do is forget about long-term solutions as we focus on the short term. So one final thing, I've lost how long I've talked here, but I was speaking to a police officer yesterday at the hotel, and he had come to the first hotel when we moved in, and he was a little freaked out, and the city was freaked out about what we were doing because it was the county that was handling it, not the city. And so this was Monterey Park we're in, and the police officer came and was like, we're really nervous. What are you guys doing? And we explained it to him and kept him in the loop. He came to our second hotel yesterday, also in Monterey Park, and he came up to me and he chatted to me and he said, I just wanted to tell you that we are thrilled and the city is thrilled at what you're doing, because we have seen all sorts of people off the streets, people that we've tried to get housed for years, and now they're housed. And we want to talk to you about permanent solutions because this works. And I tell you, I wanted to jump up and down and say, yes, finally they're getting it. Putting people inside and getting them housed is the solution. So I think, again, as horrible as this crisis is, as frightening as it is a window of opportunity for all of us to say, hey, folks, we've started to get people off the streets. Let's keep the momentum going. Let's turn this into a permanent solution, not just a temporary crisis response. Again, thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for our amazing partners. And again, together, we can truly end homelessness. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And that was a really powerful discussion of all that you are doing at Union Station. That's just awesome. And we all agree with you. This isn't going to be a temporary, this needs to be a permanent solution. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from Amara Onanawu on what Lake Avenue Church is doing immediate and longer term for our homeless neighbors and how the community can help. Amara is the Housing and Homelessness Outreach Coordinator at Lake Avenue Church in Pasadena. The church's primary commitment is to homelessness prevention, as well as planning and implementing effective and compassionate ministry to those struggling with homelessness and other related issues within our local community. Amara has served on the LA Mayor's Central Area Task Force in service of a Bridge Home initiative. She's worked alongside LAPD Reset in outreach, and she's organized programs and events to bridge communities and resources in downtown Los Angeles. So thank you for being with us, Amara.
Thank you so much for having me. Just among such incredible people doing incredible work, I think Lake represents the organizations that we're doing our part, right? We're doing what we can do to contribute. So one of the things that I really love about Lake is that what we try to do is respond to real-time need. So it's really important that we have meetings like this, and my role is to stay abreast of what's happening in the community so that we can respond and inform our congregation. So one of those responses, as Jenny mentioned earlier, there were organizations that adopted hand washing stations. So we are one of the churches who jumped on that. We have a hand washing station on the corner of Lake and Maple, and it is well used. And so it's just, that's one of the smallest things that we can do. Lake Avenue has hosted a community meal for over 20 years. We continue to do that every second, third, and fourth Sunday. We've clearly changed our procedures and have created more of a takeaway model, but we still enjoy the camaraderie. It is still such a staple for our community. We tend to see on a normal day anywhere from 75 to 120 people. And so many of them have been with us for years. And we are like their church home, even though they may not attend Sunday service. We have our own Sunday service with them during community meals. So it's been wonderful to see the same faces and be able to provide a bit of stability and food security for our community, the people who come to us. One of the things in community meal, again, we always try to stay responsive. And so we will often partner back when we were meeting together with other organizations to help the people in our community. So whether that is inviting Union Station to come in and do surveys for housing, or inviting Wesley Healthcare Center to do a mobile healthcare unit. We've done both in the past. Right now, I'm really grateful to Pasadena FD for providing us with hand sanitizer that allowed us to put together hygiene kits for our guests for the last 3 Sundays. So each Sunday with their meal, we've provided sets of gloves, sets of masks, and hand sanitizer with our to-go meals. So we're doing our part to protect the population that comes to us and to get the word out. And as Sonia mentioned and Anthony earlier, you know, our largest program is actually prevention through rental assistance. So it is by far our largest focus. We have a neighborhood center on the ground floor of Lake Avenue Church, and that is a place where people can come or call us. And we're here to serve both our church and the community. Especially right now, we're under rent moratorium, but it is our experience even now that people who are experiencing financial hardship and will so after this emergency declaration is done, and they have to continue to pay rent, we are a source that will be there to assist people in paying their rent and staying housed, because evictions has been one of the major contributors to homelessness, and we want to stand in that gap for people and make sure that they stay housed. Another thing that we're doing is, because, you know, it's really important to us to utilize partnerships as much as we can to maximize the dollars that we have to spend on homelessness and homelessness prevention. Our program is completely a private program. So I do want to shout out to our congregation, because they are some of the most generous people I have ever come across. Like, even at a time where we're not meeting collectively as a church and we're not making the major asks, we have probably had more donations than when we do a call on a Sunday. So I'm just so honored to be a part of a community that sees a need and wants to respond even in advance. So we are well geared up to assist people as we go through this crisis and come out of it and have rents to pay. We are working with Friends Indeed and Door of Hope. We've established an informal partnership to maximize our funds so we can help as many people as possible. And just even longer term, we're a church who is, we're coaching and equipping other faith communities, anyone who wants to do any aspect of what we do or create a program of their own. We have put ourselves in a position to mentor other faith communities so that they can step in and do their part. So that's our report on Lake. Thank you so much again for having me, and it's been wonderful to hear all of the work. And so we continue to fight.
Thank you so much, Amara, for giving us the faith-based perspective. We know a lot of churches are also doing, and we really It's encouraging to hear, especially now when you can't even meet, that your congregation is being so generous. Thank you for your report. And finally, we'll hear from Teresa Eilers, who will talk about the renter eviction moratorium and other homelessness prevention needs and longer-term strategies. She will also give us some important and urgent calls for action. Teresa is the West San Gabriel Valley organizer with United Way's Everyone In campaign. Through this position, Teresa works to engage community members to be a part of the solution to solving homelessness. Teresa has extensive community organizing and political organizing experience, which she uses in her current role. And I'm going to add to that, since I've known her, for someone, there's this one person who always shows up no matter what city in San Gabriel Valley that I know that Teresa's going to be there advocating for housing for the homeless and for renter eviction moratorium. She's been to many City of Pasadena City Hall meetings, but I know she also does work and advocates in Monrovia and Alhambra as well, and probably some other cities I'm not aware of. So Teresa, we're honored to have you.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Thanks so much for the kind words, and thanks to everybody for letting me be here. So a little bit about the Everyone In campaign. I think I know a lot of you on this call, but not everybody. So Everyone In is a part of the United Way of Greater Los Angeles. There were resources available, there are resources available to build housing for people who are experiencing homelessness and provide services. However, we've seen some backlash across the county. So the Everyone In campaign is really to build a movement, build momentum. Homelessness is one of the greatest social crises that we see today. And so just like with the civil rights movement, feminist movement, anti-war movement, we really want to create a movement, bring people in, see how interconnected we are with our economic system, our frail social system, and make sure that the system works for all of us by getting people involved. And so our campaign, the Everyone In campaign, is specific to creating more affordable and supportive housing throughout Los Angeles. And like Sonia mentioned, I work in the Western San Gabriel Valley. And so affordable housing and supportive housing means that you just spend 1/3 of your income on rent. And generally it's building new housing. Supportive housing for people who experience homelessness would come with on-site services. And so that's generally what we've been doing, pushing across the whole county for new developments to pop up. And so as Anthony mentioned earlier on the call, this coming Monday, May 4th, there's going to be the final vote for Heritage Square South, which is permanent supportive housing, or some people just call it supportive housing. That would be 69 units of housing for people, for seniors who are currently homeless. And so the process began a couple of years ago, as Anthony mentioned, and now we are at the finish line. And so it's extremely exciting. So imagine today people who are experiencing homelessness during COVID, if this housing were built, they'd be able to be living in their own units with on-site services. And so we're asking everybody to write public comments, send in letters to Pasadena City Council, and thanking them, encouraging them to pass this, to finalize this development, because we so desperately need more supportive housing throughout Los Angeles County, throughout the San Gabriel Valley, throughout Pasadena. There are currently 60,000 people in Los Angeles County, maybe most likely a lot more people experiencing homelessness. And really the only way to address homelessness is through housing and the Housing First model. And so Anthony has on here, he's sharing his screen. Here's a sample letter, and you can find the sample letter on Anthony's website, which is laquaker.blogspot.com. Is that what it was? And then, so in order to make sure that you submit your public comment in time, you direct it to public comment at cityofpasadena.net. And the meeting begins at 2 p.m. this Monday. And so what you want to do is you want to submit your public comment once the meeting has begun. So say 2:01, 2:02, I encourage you to press send, and then your public comment will be read on the record. There is another agenda item coming up on Monday's council meeting. Oh, so there's Anthony's blog. It's laquaker.blogspot.com. And so Amara mentioned, so yes, Pasadena does have some renter protections during COVID. However, they're not quite enough. We want more. We know from the great work that Jenny and the housing department have done that the #1 contributor to people in Pasadena who are currently experiencing homelessness, that final moment that pushed them over the edge, is through economic crises. And often that's because of rent, something to do with living expenses. And so the best way, the easiest way to prevent growing homelessness is to stop people from falling into homelessness and keep them in their homes. It's a lot easier to keep people housed than to build new housing. As we can see with Heritage Square South, this has been 2 to 3 years in the making. Imagine if we could just keep thousands of people in their homes and we don't have to deal with a 3-year development process. And so we want Pasadena to adopt language. We want them to adopt an eviction moratorium that LA County passed. And so this county's COVID eviction moratorium is stronger than what Pasadena passed. We're so grateful that Pasadena passed eviction moratorium, but we're just asking them to decide as a city council to overrule that motion in exchange of adopting the county's eviction moratorium. And so here are a couple ways that the eviction moratorium at the county level is better than Pasadena's, and for that matter, many other cities in the San Gabriel Valley, LA County, is the county's eviction moratorium allows tenants up to 12 months to pay back any rent that is due, whereas Pasadena's, they only allow for a 6-month grace period. And you can imagine if you're out of work, how are you going to come up with, with months worth of rent in a matter of months? Some cities, they require their grace period is even shorter, which is mind-blowing. Tenants, it's just not feasible. You can't just procure money out of thin air. Another way that the county's eviction moratorium is better is that it takes away the need for tenants to demonstrate that they've lost income. You can imagine if you're a dog walker, for example, how are you going to get a letter from your employer that you no longer have your job? So that is huge. And it also allows landlords to create payment plans and accept partial rent from their tenants. Unfortunately, during COVID-19, you can only comment once during a council meeting. So we would ask for some of you to comment regarding the eviction moratorium this Monday, and for others to comment regarding Heritage Square South. And again, the same rules apply. You send it to public comment at cityofpasadena.net. Also, in order for your comment to be read on the record, it needs to be 200 words or less. You can send a long letter, however, that won't be read on the record. What I do is I send 2. I send one long one and I send one short one. The short one's read, the long one hopefully is read at some other point. And then moving on, a lot of people have already talked about Project Room Key, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. As I mentioned earlier, we need to house at least 60,000 people in LA County to end homelessness, at least 5,000 people throughout the San Gabriel Valley. And so it's been a real uphill battle creating more affordable, more supportive housing. And Project Room Key really is it's an amazing silver lining. If you had mentioned to me 2 months ago that the federal government, in conjunction with the state, would mandate that we house 15,000 people who are experiencing homelessness in LA County, I wouldn't have believed you. not at all. But it's a really awesome opportunity that now we get to house 15,000 individuals throughout Los Angeles County. And to date, the whole county has placed 2,500 individuals into motels, or at the bare minimum, found 2,500 rooms that they're able to go into. And this includes 600 units throughout San Gabriel Valley, which not all of them are currently occupied. We're in the process of placing people, but it's a huge first step. As many people have mentioned, this is, it's temporary. We really need to advocate for cities, motels to turn these temporary units into permanent units. Governor Newsom, he included language in the motel leases where there's a purchasing agreement. So we want everybody to send letters to your cities. If you live in Pasadena, send them to Pasadena. If you live in Monterey Park, Monterey Park. Here are the cities who have done a great job, stepped up to the plate, and they need encouragement for these temporary housing units to be turned into permanent units. El Monte, Azusa, Pomona, Walnut, West Covina, Monterey Park, and Pasadena. They all deserve a big round of applause, but more than that, they need our support. Creating supportive housing and homeless housing, it's brave, it takes a lot of leadership, and we need to let them know that we're there for them and we support them. And also on Anthony's website is a draft letter that you can send in to council members throughout the San Gabriel Valley, thanking them for their leadership in creating temporary housing, but then also encouraging them to do what is right and convert these temporary units into permanent units. Because on, as Ann mentioned, it's a 90-day lease. On day 91, where are these people gonna go? We don't want them going back onto the street. The housing exists. Let's turn it into permanent supportive housing. And it looks like my time is up. Thank you very much. I'll type my email in here, so if anybody has any questions for me, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Well, we're at 8:24. Anthony was monitoring the chat. It seems like we have quite a few questions. Anthony, we have a few minutes.
Looking, yeah, I'm.
You're on mute.
Okay, one of the questions came up is about opportunities for service. And I think, Sonia, you have done something around gathering information about that. Could you say anything about that, or anyone else?
Right. There are a lot of food pantries and meal programs in the city. I have prepared a spreadsheet of needs, and the primary need now is volunteers, just like Ann Miskey was mentioning. It's both for distribution and for delivering. I know Pasadena Community Foundation has also been involved with gathering information with the city of Pasadena. And I did put my email address on there. If anybody would like my spreadsheet, I'd be happy to send it to them. Also, I know that Burt, if you could just mention about the faith partnership, what they're working on.
Yeah, they, well, Dan's on this call, right? Are you here? Dan Davidson?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so Dan is working on a volunteer form to go on the partnership website where people can offer services or offer volunteers or ask for things. And then, so we're using Sonia's spreadsheet. I've been trying to update that just even the last couple of days with some new information. We're going to link resources and people and needs. We're working on that. Dan, is there anything else I should say about that?
I'll add that the intake form is live. So I'm posting in the chat here. where you can find that. We have 2 intake forms. One is focused for service providers that need volunteers or resources. We'll collect those requests. And then we have another intake form for, let's say, faith communities or organizations and groups that have volunteers ready to go, or maybe they have resources. I found like someone today that's making some more masks. So we could put that in the other intake form, and then Burt and I working together will do the matchmaking to make sure that those asking for volunteers can connect with those who are ready to volunteer.
This is a fantastic idea. When I started working on it, you don't want to recreate the wheel or duplicate what you're doing. And so if we can have this coordination, because I've talked to a number of people running food pantries, and the need is just so much more now. So many more people are coming. They need just basic food items. So if you're interested in volunteering, please follow up either on the Faith Partnership website. The city does have a website as well, and Union Station. I know they can volunteer there and submit, get the information to be able to do that. So there's lots of opportunities right now to volunteer.
I'd like to make a quick statement, if that's okay. If several people said that they are have some masks, so if there's others, feel free to do that. And if you have links to anyone who's sewing them and would be willing to make contribution toward the epicenter in Pasadena with those nursing homes, it's very serious. We're very aware that they are short on the PP, the protective equipment that they need. So just wanted to put in another plug for that. Thank you. So anyone who has, I hope you looked at the link of where to deliver those masks, and I put my email in there as well. So be sure and contact me if you know of anything. Thanks.
So I see a question here. What percentage of your clients are female? And I assume that's for Ann Miskey. And another question is about how are you helping people who are homeless to get their stimulus checks, or people who are in this situation?
So in terms of the numbers of women, it pretty much is steady across the board, where we see about 30% of the people experiencing homelessness are women. We're also seeing a number of couples come into the hotels, so which I think is a great thing. In terms of the stimulus checks, I will be frank to admit that is not my area of expertise, but we do have staff who work directly with clients on any of those kinds of issues, and they know what they're doing. So they work on benefits, things like stimulus checks. One of the things I will say about Project Room Key, which I think is great, is they're just starting to do now, is they're bringing on site people from DMV and DPSS, things like that, to get people IDs and to make sure that they actually can get the resources, so whether they need a bank account or whatever. So that is something they are working on through this project. But our staff do these kinds of things all the time. But I'm definitely not the person who knows how to do that. I have really smart people working for me.
I can just jump in really quick and say that everybody who is eligible for stimulus check and is a client or getting service, new and old, are directed toward that and help to fill out whatever they need to fill out to make sure that they get that.
So I've got a question. Is every homeless person entitled to a check, and how much would that be?
My understanding is, as long as you have filled out, if you have filled out a tax form, then you are eligible. So every person who has ever filed taxes should be getting it. And I don't know how they do it outside of that, but.
So yeah, really quickly, I think that, yeah, everybody is eligible. If they haven't filled out a recent tax form, we help them do that. If they have disability benefits or Social Security, they ease the requirements for that, and if there's direct deposit it's being made or checks are being mailed out.
Anthony, maybe one or two more. Do you have any?
I don't see any more questions. If you do, just type them in the chat, but I've gone through all of the ones I can see.
Rita's holding up her hand.
Oh, then speak out.
You have to take yourself off mute.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
I did it again. Okay. There are a lot of good comments and questions in the chat box. Is there any way to preserve that and put that out as some kind of record from this?
Yes, if you go to the bottom of the chat, there's 3 or 4 little dots on the far right side. If you press that, and there's a little feature that says Save Chat. And you press that and it'll save all of the chats in a folder. And it says Show in Folder. You press it, and then you find out where they put it in your document file, and it saves all of the chats for the whole
Well,
night.
I guess even more generic than that, there's an awful lot of good information that is new to us that we probably want to share more with people. For instance, I see that Jennifer added some very important information that the city of Pasadena is setting aside $1 million to help people with rent problems, which I think is amazing.
Right.
So
that's all very good news. I know this wasn't near long enough, but I want to thank you all for coming, and to all of our presenters for giving us critical information tonight and for their continued efforts toward making the lives of our homeless neighbors better. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming.
And I want to say one last thing. If you haven't put your email yet into chat, that's one way we can get all the chats to you. We can send those to you if you provide your email. So thank you, Sonia, and the homeless housing team. You did a fabulous job tonight. Thank you so much.
Everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay safe.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Stay mighty.
Hey, thanks, team. It's Allison. I just want to say thanks for a great meeting, and for those of you who attended on Saturday, thank you so much.
And thank you, Allison, for the amazing work that you do and for the Pasadena Tenants Union. Appreciate it.
Well, we all support each other. Have a great evening, everybody. And great job for the moderating team. You did a wonderful job. Thanks.
Yeah, Alice, yeah, you're right. Sonia, you did a great job. Thank you.
You're rocking it, Sonia. You've got a future in this, sister. You've got a future in it.
Yep, you sure do.
Barbara, did you, while a few of us are still here, you were raising your hand. Did you want to ask a question? Unmute yourself and ask a question. You're on mute. You got to unmute yourself. Down in the lower left-hand corner. You don't see it?
Oh, it wasn't that I didn't see it. I couldn't get it to the bar to come up. All I kept seeing was everybody else. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify. There was some questions about the $1,200 money, and I have information about that. Everyone who has, if they are already getting any kind of benefit, especially if they're getting Social Security Disability or SSI, the money will be automatically deposited into whatever account or whatever card it gets loaded automatically. They do not have to file taxes. They do not have to do anything. And that money will be treated as a tax rebate. So it will not affect their eligibility.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I was thinking, but I decided not to butt in, but thank you for that.
If they're getting Social Security or disability or SSI, they're going to get that money in the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
you need to be preparing people on how that money might be spent so that they don't just suddenly go, oh, I can go get high or whatever. If they are a veteran and then getting veterans disability, that's going to be the third round. So they won't be getting that money right away. It'll be about another 30 days. And then everybody else that requires a paper check, good luck. It's going to take months.
Yeah. But most SSI recipients have a card and an account, and it goes into that account automatically. There's no paperwork that needs to be done.
Right. There's no paperwork that needs to be done. The work that needs to be done is just to make people aware that it's coming, and they need to start to make a list of things they want to spend it on. You know, like some people really want a Chromebook, or they really have been wanting to go visit family in, you know, another state, and they haven't had the money to buy a round trip ticket. So things that have been long deferred, this is their opportunity. I have clients that only get like, now I want to say $800 or $900 a month. So $1,200, you know, coming with no strings attached. You know, this is a huge opportunity for them.
So Barbara, if I'm clear, as someone who's getting $1,000 a month, SSI will also get $1,200 as a.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
Yeah.
And
Barbara, who do you work for, Barbara?
Mental health hookup.
Mental health hookup?
Mental
Mm-hmm.
hook up.
It's interesting. I've never heard of it. Mental health hookup.
Well,
She's the one
mental health hookup, don't we?
Well, what we do is our primary focus is working with families that have an adult child with serious mental illness.
Okay.
And so, you know, we really do spend a lot of time connecting people with resources.
Thank you so much for what you do.
I just happened to attend a seminar, webinar, whatever they're called, a meeting like this last Friday on this $1,200, and it is a flat $1,200. They will get $1,200. It will not be prorated. It'll be prorated at the upper end for people that have an adjusted gross income above $75,000. None of my people.
Yeah. Where is your nonprofit? I assume it's a nonprofit. Where is it located?
How did you guess? We never make a profit. We're based in Santa Clarita, but you know, we go all over.
How did you learn about the meeting tonight?
One of your members.
Oh, wow, great.
Invited.
And I invited her. She's the one I told you about in an email. Is working on a state level to advocate for board and care facilities, which I think should be on our radar.
Absolutely. We really need to support board and care.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that because, you know, there for a while, the housing first model, a lot of the people felt like, well, board and care homes, that's not permanent housing, but for some people it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we need an exit strategy so that for those people that have stabilized and can move out of boarding care, emptying that bed for someone who really needs it, like someone who's been homeless a long time and has comorbidities and needs medication to be monitored and administered by the dose.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the solution that we need.
Well, can you let us know how we can best support board and care?
Right. Very same thing you were talking about your meeting tonight about. The first thing you can support, we have a race for Congress in my area, but you do not need to be in our area in order to support this person. Christy Smith, who is a Democrat, has been supporting boarding care homes and raising the rate. The rate that is paid to boarding care operators who serve the mentally ill is $35 a day. Now, if they have the same license and they serve people from the regional center, they get a minimum of, I think, $75, $85 up to maybe $400 a day. So if you a boarding care home, who would you serve? You know, especially if you want.
Barbara, I hate to interrupt you. If you could send us, like if there's some policies or some talking points and who we would write to.
Sure, I can.
That would be really helpful. I think we should try to do what we can because, you know, those experiencing, you know, living in boarding care, I mean, if they go out, they meet a critical need in society, and I know the big issue is the funding. They just haven't gotten the funding. So we need to really support them. So thank you for doing that.
I will do that.
Yeah, thanks. Do you know how to send it to us? Or I guess through Burt, maybe. Yeah. Great.
He's going to be sorry he gave me his name.
Hmm?
I said, he's going to be sorry he gave me his name. I will send that to him.
Well, we need it simple. You know, who do we contact and what are the issues? I mean, what do we say to the people that we contact? Yeah.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Now, well, people are still on here. I do not know Janet. I do not know Christy. Could you introduce yourselves? Christy, are you still on?
My name is Christy Clark. I am a candidate for ordained in the United Methodist Church, and I actually can't even remember who invited me. It was one of my Facebook friends, but I'm really interested in the homelessness crisis in LA, especially as it pertains to former foster youth. So that's why I decided to come tonight.
Where are you located, Christy? What city?
I'm in Hawthorne.
In Hawthorne.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us tonight. And we do have a church in Hawthorne we're working with to try to build affordable housing on their property. So there may be a way you can be of support for that. Because we know that's the answer to homelessness, is housing.
Yeah.
And that people can afford. Janet, can you introduce yourself? Because I don't think I know you either. Are you on, Janet?
She's on mute.
She's on mute. And there was someone else, Clara. I don't think I know you either. If you could introduce yourself, that'd be great before we totally sign off. I don't think they can hear.
If you have, this is Christy again. If you have that church in Hawthorne you were talking about, I dropped my email address in the chat.
Okay, yeah, we're working on it. And it may be of help to have your contact. So is Clara, can you hear Clara? Does anyone know how Clara got connected to us? No.
Nope.
Well, thank you guys all for being part. And I know Cynthia, you joined us tonight, so thank you. And Tom, you didn't get to give your report, but next time we'll make sure that link is more prominent for you. So.
We had several liaisons that RSVP'd that they'd come and weren't here, so I don't know if they didn't find the link. I'm not sure what happened. But,
yeah, I don't think the link was real clear for a lot of people. I think we needed another last minute reminder just with the link only. So.
Yeah, I sent out a reminder this morning by e-bite to everybody. And so
sometimes just the link alone without anything else as a reminder is helpful. So it's hard sometimes for people to dig down until they finally find where the link is.
Right.
But, well, you guys, good job.
Okay. Yeah, we had
did a great job.
We had 54 participants, and I have the names of most of them. I hand wrote their names, and we have captured by chat a lot of the emails that people volunteered. So I think it was an excellent turnout and very well. I think it went very well. I mean, we had very few glitches. The only thing was Ann Miskey wasn't able to screen share, but I think that was on her side.
Yeah.
But
yeah. What are your thoughts, Burt?
Yeah, it went well. I mean, you know, I can't wait till we're back and meeting in person again.
Yeah.
Even well is, it's difficult, but, and then I never know, like I have glitches on my end. I don't know if everyone else is experiencing it, if it's just me, but, yeah, but otherwise, I mean, it went well.
Yeah. Yeah. I have